Hey everyone, good evening and welcome back. Let me double check. Please drop a 1 in the chat so that I know that we are streaming. Yes, we are. We're live. Welcome everyone. I'll put my headphones on just to prevent echo. Thaddeus, thank you very much for joining me tonight. Yeah, so finally now I can hear you because now I've got my headphones in. Uh, yeah, very much. Yeah, so the delay should be about 3 or 4 seconds within YouTube. Marek, Adam Leuchter, hello and welcome. Hey, thank you. Good to see you all. Adam Leuchter, thank you very much for joining. Um, yeah, Deduza, Yaya, Villainous, Cogito, and there's a guy called Reason Dances in the chat as well. Excellent. Okay, guys, today we are doing part 2 of my discussion on secular humanism and socialism. Well, socialism, really. But obviously, we're looking at socialism as a religion. In fact, it's founding as a religion. And Michael Petek, welcome. So, Thaddeus, in terms of the discussion we've had on socialism being founded as a religion and a specifically Christian replacement, an anti-Christian religion, what are your thoughts before we open up here? No sound? Hold on a second. Sorry, apparently there's no sound. Oh, gosh.
Oh, goodness.
Oh, man. I'm so sorry. Okay, you are there now. Please say something.
Hello, everyone. Hopefully you can hear me now. I was talking,
Stefania Luna,
but
welcome. Yeah, guys, just drop a 1 if you can hear Thaddeus now, please. Okay, we can hear you. That is my. Sorry,
all right.
there was an update to OBS which I did not install because the last update broke everything. And there is a bug in OBS and it was fine earlier. Now it's not. So yeah, okay, thank you.
All right. So to rewind and say what I said that no one could hear.
Sorry.
So far, we've been looking at the founders of socialism, this movement, if you will. Uh, the people today say that it has nothing to do with religion. Atheists likewise say that their beliefs are not religious in any way. Um, Yet, when we look at the writings of the founders of socialism, we look at the writings of the founders of atheistic thought, we see over and over again explicit claims that they were creating a new religion, that they were aiming to replace Christianity. They believed that the people could not get by without any sort of religion. They realized that the only way to get rid of Christianity was to replace it. You can't get rid of Christianity, replace it with nothing. You have to replace it with something, and that's what they aim to do with socialism.
Yeah, very much. You actually made me realize there was something that I had brought up to you a little while ago. Actually, you know what? I'm going to show it to people now. Guys, I'm going to show you this. This is a. Okay, let me swap screens. Here we go. Okay, so I always had lots of bonus material, and welcome. I see we've got Dragon and Stefania Luna and Niklas Paulsen. The Swedish contingent is in the house. Thank you very much. Again, sorry about all the technical issues. As you know, I always have this. Yeah. So guys, this is okay. A little slide I've entitled "The Humanist Deception," and secular humanism is, shall we say, it's another religion. It's another atheist religion. You can think of it as the atheist expression or the atheist exegesis of their morals, right? Of their social cause. Socialism is like the political cause, then secular humanism is like their social/moral precepts bottled up. Read this. Okay, so humanists have been trying to redefine terms to weasel the way out of the mess they put themselves in. Those are my words. But there remain sound, practical reasons not to call humanism a religion. Now, this is from an atheist, from one of the top humanists, okay, secular humanists in America, writing in their journal. It is advantageous for fundamentalists, notice secular fundamentalists, right, to present humanism as a competing faith that, no, my bad. So they're talking about Christians here. It is advantageous for fundamentalists to present humanism as a competing faith that, though diametrically opposed to their own creed, is nonetheless of the same order. So they're saying, so Christians want to present humanism as a religion, but secular humanism was founded, as we will do in the future, explicitly as a religion. Now, if humanism is perceived as a religion, thoughtful skeptics who reject religion may reject humanism too, depriving the movement of needed viewpoints and enthusiasm. A humanism that is religious is subject to the same constitutional curbs by which humanists themselves have striven to restrict the excesses of conventional religions. If humanism is a church, then it must be kept separate from the state. Now remember, this is after a previous discussion where he states that humanism is a religion. It was founded specifically and explicitly as a religion, as an atheist religion, right? And he says, if we can persuade the public that humanism is a philosophy, not a religion, we can reduce the possibility that the new generation of conservative jurists can use against us the First Amendment protections on which we depend. So these atheists have gone out of their way to make sure that people do not perceive their atheist secularism as a religion, even though it is legally in the US, it is legally a religion. Your thoughts, that is, before I continue.
Well, yeah, note that he says practical reasons. He doesn't say logical reasons or rational reasons, practical reasons. It's all about the result. It's not about, argument or pure reason or anything like that. It's like, if people see us as a religion, some people who don't like religion might reject us, and other people who do like religion might say, wait a minute, you don't get preference in the public. We want that preference. Actually, he says, we depend on using the First Amendment to disadvantage traditional religion.
Yeah.
We can't be under the same standing. If we're under the same standing, then we're not going to win.
Yeah, and Yaya says, so we have a strong point to kick them out of schools and education system by law. Yes, you do. Because legally, in the United States, atheism is a religion. Secular humanism is a religion. Get this clear. Atheism in the US is a religion. Legally, at the high court, at the US Supreme Court level, it is a religion. Therefore, it is now become a de facto state religion that has mandated itself in schools. And wokeness is based on this. It's atheist, secular, fundamentalist humanism. It's secular fundamentalism. And yes, you do have a case. So, okay, moving away from that. Now, so today's topic, by the way, something else that you guys may or may not find interesting. So let me just get to this. Right, now, this is bound to annoy people, and I have a knack for doing that. I'm busy working on a series at the moment called One Nation Under God, America, a Christian nation. Guaranteed to annoy a lot of people. Please understand, America was founded as a Christian nation. And I've been looking at both sides of this argument. I'm not even American, but I can read. And I have a knack for finding information. And at some point in the future, I will be talking about US civics. I will be talking about the founding of America and the founding fathers as strongly Christian, very strongly Christian. And the story that we're told about America being secular, that the founding fathers were just deists, were just atheists, those stories are by and large false. On a scale from 1 to 10, it's all complete garbage, right? So I know I make lots of strong statements, but we're going to show you socialism is a religion. It's a ripoff of Christianity. And atheism is a religion. We're going to show all the sources, and we're going to get to this one day soon as well. Thaddeus, your thoughts on this?
Yeah, I think it'll be a very interesting look. We certainly absorb through the education system, the public education system, that the founding fathers, they were nominally Christian, but they didn't really have any religious beliefs. They really were founding a secular nation. They basically were functionally atheists. That's the kind of thing that we hear in our schools. And the actual history is a bit different. There are a couple figures in the founding of America that aren't all that religious, but most of them actually are quite religious. So it's very interesting.
Yeah, and I'm going to be tackling this subject head on. So hopefully, well, it'll take a while. There's a lot to get through. I'm working on a lot of stuff, but I will also be tackling Darwin. We'll be talking about science because, as you know, atheists worship science, and we're going to be looking at the crimes of science, the frauds of science, the genocides of science, the really dark, evil side of science. So we're going to have a look at just how noble science has been over the years, the ones that, atheists love. Okay, so let's ditch that topic and get into the topic of the day. Of course. Right, let me bring up my next. Okay, here we go. So, socialism, the humanist religion of atheists, right? And we're going to be talking about secular hubris, atheist fanatics, and their history of very failed ideas. Now, I don't want to go back over material that I've covered in the past, but I do want to go to a slide that you may find relevant. Notice this: atheism is a natural and inseparable part of Marxism, the theory and practice of scientific socialism, right? Atheism is an integral part of Marxism. When I showed someone this today, they were like, they weren't real atheists. So suddenly I came to learn that Marx, Lenin, Stalin, and Engels were not real atheists. I've heard Abdul say that they're not real Muslims. So they threw the not real Muslims, that's not my scholar argument at me. I thought Abdul's did that, but sorry, I need to find something here. But yeah, that seems to be the standard approach by atheists today. So hold on, I want to show something that is of relevance here. Okay, this is important. This is Ludwig Feuerbach, and this is the guy who introduced the ideas. He wasn't perhaps the originator, but he is certainly the strong proponent of religious atheism. And he says here, and I will come to these slides later, but understand this sets the tone. What yesterday was still religion is no longer such today. And what today is atheism, tomorrow will be religion. That is Ludwig Feuerbach. And notice Friedrich Engels tells us all the communists of 1845 were followers of Feuerbach. Right? And Feuerbach wrote, "Man alone is our God, our Father, our Judge, our Redeemer, our true home, our law and our rule, the Alpha and the Omega of our life and our political, moral, public and domestic activity. There is no salvation save through the medium of man." Your thoughts on that is?
Yeah, well, I think that the language here is pretty carefully chosen, that he's using language that Christians would relate to. And he's explicitly saying, we're replacing that man is our God now, that everything that Christianity has to offer you can find in your own self.
Yep. Now, notice he says that ideas rested ultimately upon matter, and the driving force of history was mankind's material conditions. In other words, if you had a nice house in a nice neighborhood, you'd be a good person. It doesn't matter your spiritual or philosophical ideas or the things you imbibe as a family, right? The values, which is dialectical materialism. In fact, the Communist Confession of Faith, which was renamed to the Communist Manifesto, right, because it was a religious confession of faith, speaks of historical materialism as the fundamental driving force of progress of history. And Marx was heavily influenced by this man, as was Charles Darwin and many, many others. Right, now, so let me continue here. And we ended off somewhere around here. So, okay, so let's just continue more or less where we left off previously. Yeah, socialism has never been tried properly, says Villainous. Yeah, that is also true. Woke propaganda, he says, should be banned as proselytizing. Yes, it is. It is religious proselytizing according to their own definitions, yes. Now, we spoke of this guy, Henry Saint-Simon, this Frenchman who developed socialism as a full philosophy. And of course, this heavily influenced Marx and many, many, many others. And he created the term socialism, socialisme, the new Christianity. So in his best-known work, The New Christianity, socialism is a religion, and its huge concern is the plight of the poor. You'll see Democrats today in the US, you will see them always talking about the poor, the disadvantaged, right? Compassion. They speak of having compassion because that's one of their buzzwords within the new socialist religion, this new atheistic socialist religion. Now, he says here, religion. So before the publication of Nouveau Christianisme, Saint Simon had not concerned himself with theology, but in his work, beginning with the faith in God, where he's trying to destroy faith in God, he tries to resolve Christianity into its essential elements, and he says that religion should guide the community towards the great aim of improving as quickly as possible the conditions of the poorest class. And then, of course, we have a new religion in the 19th century called Christian Socialism, still exists today, attempted to apply the social principles of Christianity to modern industrial life. And they advocated, among other things, that inheritance rights be abolished, which is what Marx wanted. So all that money you would inherit goes to the state, so that capitalists could leave the hands of capital could leave the hands of self-seeking capitalists and be placed at society's disposal. State become God. Thaddeus, your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, the people don't need the money they have. The state can handle it much better.
Yeah. Centralization, it is socialism. Central planning, it is socialism. And in fact, I had someone today tell me that that these guys were secular theologians or secular theocrats, and that not believing in a God and state become God, means that they were religious in the sense that they weren't atheists. The state becoming a God doesn't mean that the state is God itself. The atheists still deny God, just that the most powerful thing you have, if you remove God, is the state. And the state now usurps that role, but it doesn't mean the state is God, because they are still denying God. They're not denying the state. So this kind of word games are constant with in terms of atheist thinking. It's based on sophistry.
That's quite humorous because, we would tend to agree. You haven't replaced God with nothing. You've replaced it with something else, whether it's, the state or your own personal feelings or whatever the case may be. And here the atheists is say, no, they're not real atheists because they replaced God with something else. Of course, no doubt, this atheist does the exact same thing and just doesn't recognize it.
Yeah, or won't admit to it. Right, now again, fail Britannia. So we ended off around these slides. I'm just picking up more or less where we left off. So understand the term Christian socialism was then taken by a group of British men, including these guys, Frederick Denison Morris, Charles Kingsley, John Malcolm Ludlow. Ludlow has actually got a lot to say for himself, who founded a movement that took shape in England, right? So they wanted to vindicate for the kingdom of Christ its true authority over the realms of industry and trade. So now Christianity was supposedly a religion that somehow was supposed to control industry and trade, commerce. It doesn't make sense, but because Jesus does say, my kingdom is not of this world. And Jesus didn't run many businesses. I don't recall how many businesses he had, or if he did an MBA somewhere. Maybe he did at the University of Jerusalem. I'm not aware of it. And socialism, in its true character as the great Christian revolution of the 19th century, that's why they try to claim Jesus was a socialist. Thaddeus.
Yeah, well, it's very interesting. You have the one group of socialists who say, well, we got to replace religion with socialism. We got to replace the God with man, replace the individual with the state. And then you have these other socialists who are like, we're the Christian socialists. We want to do the exact same thing, but we'll claim that we're doing it for Christ. Yeah,
thou shalt not use my name in vain, right? And that seems to be exactly what they're doing. So we did discuss this last week, that this is a paraphrase of Marx's, the opium of the people phrase, but apparently this guy was not aware of Marx's phrase, but he says that religion, and the Bible, is an opium dose for keeping beasts of burden, that's the labor class, right, your working man, of keeping the beasts of burden patient while they were being overloaded, and as a mere book to keep the poor in order. So they started to create this idea that religion was just there to abuse man, to keep them lowly. And this is exactly the same thing that Stalin, Marx, Lenin, and Engels were saying. So I'll just continue. So Jesus, as you know, was a Christian socialist industrialist, right? And so we had the birth of what's called the social gospel in the Church of England. Okay, so sadly, I come from the Church of England. So yeah, I have looked at the Church of England at its headquarters, and I've shaken my head a whole lot, man. Seriously, I'm like, what are these people thinking? So, Charles Mansfield and the Christian Socialist Brotherhood, 1848 to 1855. That's this dude here. So, inspired by a disciple of this guy, Saint Simon, who created socialism, this Ludlow guy, raised and educated in France, where the French Revolution happened, so he was trained by a bunch of crazy philosophers, enlisted other churchmen in an effort to promote the application of Christian principles in industrial organization. And stirred by sufferings of the poor and by factory and workshop conditions, Ludlow's group vigorously criticized socially conservative Christianity. And yeah, so they started to attack Christianity. And of course, they founded a number of Christian socialist organizations, which dissolved not long after, although some still do survive. Just your thoughts on that. But they try to turn it into a social system, into an industrial system, into a political system, into a commercial system. This was their version of Christianity applied to. But of course, it's not Christianity. It's simply just in the name of Christianity, I believe. Your thoughts, then, Thaddeus?
Yeah, well, Mr. Ward there titled his book "The Birth of the Social Gospel," i.e., he is saying this is a new gospel. And of course, when we read in the New Testament, and it's very clear that what we are to do with someone who brings a new gospel, if this already existed, he wouldn't have to say the birth of, he'd just say explaining the social gospel or rediscovering or something like that. But no, it's the birth, it's the creation of a new gospel. And as Paul says, anyone who comes after us with a new gospel, even if it were an angel or one of the apostles teaching it, that person is teaching a false gospel, and you should discard anything they have to say. But it ties right in with, trying to replace Christianity. He wants to follow the gospel of his own creation, not the actual gospel.
That's a really good point. I missed that entirely. You're right. So, yeah, if anyone brings a new gospel. And Cogito says, all countries that once railed against kings and emperors, they now have kings and emperors. They just don't use those titles. Yeah, very true. So I'll continue. So, technocracy. Now, Saint Simon wanted priests to be replaced by scientists. Scientists would be the new priests of society. And industrialists would be, that means the owners of big corporations, like, the owners of Facebook, Twitter, and so on. They would become the new masters of society. They would steer society from the point of view of science and the point of view of industry. Those two would collaborate to steer society. Although I don't know if we're seeing anything like that happening today, but you guys can let me know in the chat. So technocracy is an organizational structure or system of governance, right? And so he was recommending a system of governance based on these Christian principles, where scientists take the lead, where decision makers are selected on the basis of technological knowledge, right? So Mark Zuckerberg, you need to run society because technically you're the smartest among us. Neil deGrasse Tyson, you're a scientist. You need to run everything. And this would be the people with the gnosis. Now, technocracy was popular in the early 20th century as a leftist answer for governmental change. Technocrat the word is a pejorative. It's an insult. It's a bad word. In the 21st century, referring to individuals often related to universities exercising governmental authority because of elitist knowledge. The elites. And technocracy as a word first appeared in 1919. Technocracy, ways and means to gain industrial democracy. In other words, socialism. Right. Now, your thoughts, Thunders? Sorry, why do I keep doing that?
You had it right the first time.
Yeah, Thaddeus, sorry about that.
So I don't know. We haven't quite seen scientists per se become the new priests. Certainly, they're highly elevated within certain atheist circles, but we certainly have seen individuals who are not in any way priests become the leaders of society, especially celebrities who have no qualifications whatsoever to talk about anything. They're good at acting, good at lying, you could say, because acting is kind of like lying, and suddenly their thoughts are what's important and everyone cares about what they have to say. Politicians rising to the top. Every once in a while, maybe a scientist or a leader of industry, but mostly, same idea but different group of people than what the socialists imagined would happen.
Right. So notice technocracy in the 30s, right, was an alternative form of socio-economic organization. Can you say World Economic Forum? Right, compared to the troubled Western states of the early 20th century, most specifically the United States under the Great Depression. Now, you need to compare this with the French Revolution, you see, because France was going through a Great Depression of its own. It was going through a financial crisis of its own. And so they decided, no, now's a great time for a revolution to bring in the new socialist utopia. And of course, they created a genocide. And of course, these technocrats were going to bring in a new revolution because America had some financial troubles and we need a new revolution. Fortunately, with the success of the New Deal and the Allied victory in World War II, the technocracy movement folded into obscurity, although it still survives today. Think World Economic Forum. And this brings us to a man called Auguste Comte. So, Isidore Auguste Marie François Xavier Comte was born January 19th, blah blah, 1857 he died. So, French philosopher, founder of sociology. So, this is how socialism made its way into the universities. He was inspired to create sociology, which was how they could turn socialism into a science, turn the method of creating a new socialist state by indoctrinating people to create these ideas and push them out into the world through the universities. So he created sociology and this idea of positivism. It's atheist positivism of philosophy. So he gave the science of sociology its name. And positivism apparently confines itself to the data of experience. In other words, he is copying and imitating 5th century BC sophist Protagoras, who stated that man is the measure of all things, that only what man sees is real, what man does not see is not real. So basically he went back to 5th century paganism as his template. And it excludes a priori or metaphysical speculations. In other words, his philosophy doesn't believe that there is a God because the concept of God is excluded from his philosophy, and using this philosophy you can't see God because this philosophy assumes that there can be no God, will be no God, never has been a God, there is no God. In fact, it doesn't allow for a God, and therefore we're looking but we don't see a God because, it makes perfect sense, right, Thaddeus?
Well, we see this from atheists today. They come into our YouTube channels or whatever, and they say there is no God, and say, what's your evidence for that? And they say, hey, I don't need any, they don't use these words, I don't need any evidence that there isn't a God. I just need you to provide the physical proof that there is God. Often they even use analogies that rely on physical objects. Like, you wouldn't believe that there's a pink elephant in this room, so why do you believe that there is a God who is omnipresent? That kind of thing.
Yeah, so unfortunately, he's using a pagan set of ideas, as we will discover as we go through this. But notice that he called positivism a religion of humanity. So he went on and created a new religion, believe it or not, and he was actually very, very influential. He influenced a lot of what people would call Enlightenment thinkers, Enlightenment philosophers. So his philosophy, his religion, excluded God. There was no possibility of God, because they decided there was no God, and therefore they can't see where, it's like, yeah, sure, okay. So it developed through several... Sorry?
Just like, prominent atheists today, like Dawkins, when they admit, whatever evidence is provided, I know a priori that it's far more probable that there's some other explanation than that God's there. Therefore, there is no God. It's quite extraordinary how they don't see that they've defined God out of existence, and then which I mean is fine, whatever, you can have whatever assumptions you want to have, but don't act like you're being rational. You're just arguing in a circle. That's all you're doing.
Exactly. So hold on, I want to show you something. I actually want to show you guys something here. This is part of a new series that I will do with Thaddeus before too long. I want to show you guys this. This is a slide. So this is from a university textbook. Now, in this textbook, I go through about 30 different definitions of the word atheism from academic sources. And already I've heard that's not my scholar, that's not my dictionary, I don't follow that, I make up my own definition. In other words, they make up their own gender, right? They make up their own gender. So it's like not a single academic or scientific resource applies to the atheist, apparently. He makes up his own. They all make it up themselves, so there's no meaning. It's whatever they feel like at the time. Notice this. This is a book it's a textbook called Logic and Theism. It was published by Cambridge University. Okay, and this is Jordan Sobel says, if one takes up the task of providing sound arguments for atheism, formidable difficulties arise. It is much easier to punch holes in theistic arguments than to actually argue for the truth of atheism. It's in the book Logic and Theism, Arguments for and Against Beliefs in God, Cambridge 2009 by Jordan Howard Sobel. Now, before his death, Sobel was considered the leading philosophical defender of atheism prior to Graham Oppy, and he is describing heuristic. Heuristic, if you've seen my series on Islamic lying, heuristic is what in Islam is called hiyal. This is the art of lying, the doctrine of lying in Islam. They're both the same. And they both come from, I just mentioned earlier, the 5th century BC, the philosopher Protagoras. Thaddeus, your thoughts?
Oh, yeah, I mean, we say this all the time, but it's quite extraordinary to hear an atheist say this, that it's really difficult to give any good arguments for atheism. So let's just not bother. Let's just attack theism instead.
Yeah, exactly. Now, don't Muslims do that? That is? Isn't that what Muslims do? They don't give...
Yeah, I was talking to a Muslim this week, and he made several posts attacking Christianity, and then I kept saying that's irrelevant. I want to talk... What are your reasons to believe in Islam? And then eventually he gave up and said, I don't want to talk to you about Islam, and left.
Exactly. Well, have a look at this. Now, atheism is just a lack of belief, right? Now, I did a preview of this a couple of nights ago on my channel. Please see. This is one of the very first advocates of atheism, one of the very first famous atheists from that Enlightenment era, right? Paul-Henri Thierry, known as the Baron de Holbach, right? Baron de Holbach. He was an 18th century advocate of atheism. Now tell me, if atheism is just the psychological state of lacking a belief, how do you advocate for a psychological state?
That's a good question for all of the atheists with YouTube channels promoting atheism, all the public speakers promoting atheism, all these people making substantial amounts of money promoting atheism, which apparently is impossible to promote since it's just a psychological state.
It's just a lack of belief. And besides, science does teach us that nature adores a vacuum. Nature just adores a vacuum. Right, Thaddeus?
Yeah, I think that's how the saying goes.
Yeah, nature adores a vacuum. The psychological state. It's just a vacuum in my head. It's just a vacuum there. And nature adores a vacuum. I'm pretty sure that's scientific. So, yeah. But just notice this. He says here that this is religion. It's prejudice that warps his mind, that prevents its expansion, that renders him the slave of fiction, appears to doom him to continual error. I guess there's no doctrine involved with this vacuum of atheism. This psychological state has no words attached to it. So just thought you guys would be interested. So I'll cover that in the future. The Catholic biblicist. Yeah, we must trust the chemicals and circuits in the brain. Yeah, sure. We just need to trust the. Yeah, I know, it's garbage, but yeah. Okay, so in 1826 he began a series of lectures on his system of positivist philosophy, but he suffered a serious nervous breakdown. He then argued that in the name of science, the theological and metaphysical stages of human development were a result of primitive superstition and ignorance. Now, of course, the not real atheists, Lenin, Stalin, Engels, Marx, said the same things. But they weren't, maybe this guy wasn't a real atheist either, probably. He wasn't a real Muslim too. Now, the positive stage, in which factual knowledge gathered and interpreted scientifically would show what men are and how they should live. So the data of man's own perception, in other words, finite man, making up his fickle little mind, would define what man was. Man in the image of man. Man limited by his own perception. Thaddeus, your thoughts?
I like how it's called the positive stage. Give it a nice name, and then everyone will they'll just come on board. That's how it works. And we're just going to look at the facts. We're just going to think about things rationally. But of course, we've decided a priori that religion is just primitive superstition and ignorance. So we don't even need to consider that. We're only interested in the other types of facts, the ones that we make up.
Correct. Now, this is no different to what Lenin said, and Lenin was not a real Muslim either, according to the atheists that I've been talking to. But yeah, let's continue with this guy. And so, the science of sociology was born, destined to rival ethics and theology in their efforts to relate man to reality, according to this article on this guy. Sociology to rival theology. Now, isn't that odd? In their efforts to relate man to reality. So this is an alternative worldview. Atheism, understand, when you look at the academic definitions of atheism, it is a doctrine, a worldview, a philosophy, a theology, right? A complete set of doctrines, like Catholic doctrine, like Protestant doctrine, like Baptist doctrine. It's defined within the academic text as doctrine. Nowhere did the academic text go, oh yeah, it's just a lack of belief. End, finished, done. No, it's how do you write 500 pages in a book on the lack of belief? No, because it's an anti-theology. It's quite literally so. And then here, so this guy's religious philosophy. The basic affirmations of positivism are: all knowledge regarding matters of fact is based on the positive data of experience. So, Thaddeus, do you know that France doesn't exist because you've never been there?
Apparently.
Right. And beyond the realm of fact is that of pure logic and pure mathematics. Why? Because it's a pure religion. And the only other thing that is greater than it is pure logic, pure reason, pure maths, that is. Your thoughts on this? I mean, just that...
Well, yeah. I mean, what is a fact? Fact is what we can see with our eyes. But we can't, really see logic. So we have to define that as being beyond fact. That's even better than a fact.
But metaphysical things don't exist. Show me
and
logic.
unless,
Where's it? Show me a piece of logic, a brick made of logic. Show me a dustbin made of logic.
Well, it's quite simple, Lloyd. You just define logic as not being part of metaphysics, and then you're fine. You just change all your definitions. So you define facts as what you can see, what you can touch, and then you define logic as what governs facts. So therefore, it's not metaphysical. It's logic. That's all. Don't call it anything else.
Don't ask any questions, bigot. So
exactly.
Yeah. Now these two apparently, now I don't understand this, that you might want to help out here, but these two were already recognized by the 18th century Scottish empiricist and skeptic David Hume as concerned merely with the relations of ideas. And in a later phase of positivism, they were classified as purely formal sciences. In other words, he had to retract his statement and change it because other philosophers turned out and said, hold on, but that's bunk. You can't call those, things that are just affirmations of your religion. These are just how ideas are connected. So, your thoughts on that? If you can explain that better than I have clarified it here.
Well, yeah, I think that I think what you're trying to say is, this idea of positivism obviously didn't work, so they just redefined things. We can't actually just say facts are what you can see and touch because we want to say other things are facts. We want to call ourselves rational, logical people, but we can't see rationality. We can't see logic. So there must be other types of facts. So we just redefine it, call it science.
Yeah, very true. So hold on, the two questions. What do they mean by pure? Look, as far as I can tell within the narrative, it's just that it's not tainted by belief. It's anything but God, anything but Christian terms, anything but biblical language. So belief, remember when atheists say atheism is the lack of belief, they don't mean that they don't believe anything. What they mean is I don't have Christian belief, because belief itself is bad. Right? Belief is associated with that evil thing called Christianity, with the Bible, with God, with Jesus. So belief is bad. They don't have belief. They only have facts, empirical facts. So it's a bit of a word game. It's a bit of wordplay. It's sophistry. You must understand their philosophy ultimately derives from 5th century BC, where there's no within the sophists there was no, well, within Protagoras there was no objective truth. It was all morally relativist. So really the foundation of their thinking comes from that source. And how do they presuppose pure logic and pure mathematics to be true? And that's a very good question. They go beyond the physical experience. Laws of logic are axioms. Mathematical objects are abstract, they're not physical. And that, exactly, it's a catch-22, it's a bind. Don't you agree, Thaddeus? That comment by the Catholic publicist, and that's true.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. They say they want to get beyond metaphysics or get away from it, but it's inescapable. You have to have this. There is no such thing as pure fact. There are observations, there are logical inferences, but there's always interpretation, there's always thought, there's always assumptions behind any conclusion. So for the positivist or the modern atheist or whoever, they need metaphysics, whether they admit to it or not.
They've dug a hole for themselves, and notice they became noted for their repudiation of metaphysics, of speculation regarding the nature of reality. Now, if your thoughts are just neurons banging together, atoms banging together, then how do you know it's true? How can you presuppose that anything you say is rational or true? How does the irrational world, the random world, produce logic? Right. So anyway, so that they repudiated metaphysics, i.e., of speculation regarding the nature of reality, that radically goes beyond any possible evidence that can either support or refute such transcendent knowledge claims. So God's not real, so how's logic real? Right? And in its basic ideological posture, positivism is thus worldly, secular, and notice, anti-theological. And that's according to Britannica. Those are not my words. It's anti-theological. Now, we're going to learn over time that atheism is a doctrine that is anti-theological. It is anti-Christian, specifically and explicitly. It was designed and created to be an atheology, a negative theology, the negation of Christian theology, the opposite of, the mirror image of. You will see this. And it's also anti-metaphysical. It's purely mechanical. Strict adherence to the testimony of observation and experience is the all-important imperative of positivism. Now, this is shades of Protagoras. Man is the measure. And so there you can see this idea, this 5th century BC pagan idea, which was rejected by Aristotle and others. This is underlying their philosophy. Now, if you want to chime in, go ahead. Otherwise, I'll just move on. But you can jump in at any time, Thaddeus. Now, this imperative was also reflected in the contributions by positivists to ethics and moral philosophy, which were generally utilitarian. In other words, what can we do with this? How can it serve us? How can we use it? Right? What can we get done with this? Right? Not what is the nature of God? Who is God? How can we love God? How can we aspire to be greater than ourselves, to be like God? But what does God do? What is the function of the church? How can we use that function to our benefit? Just like Voltaire said, there is no God, but don't tell my servant unless he kills me at night. He realized that there's a utility to believing in God. It keeps people from murdering other people willy-nilly, because if there's no God, there is no moral consequence for murder. So therefore, there's a utility. That's all they're doing here. Yes, that is.
Yeah, well, two things. One, notice that, while this statement doesn't sound particularly offensive, greatest happiness for greatest number of people, there's nothing behind it. It's just brought out of thin air. It's just doctrine without any basis as to why that would be better. One could easily argue that no, it should be that the strongest survive. That and of course other atheists are going to argue along those lines later on. But just notice that it has no basis. Second, notice that this isn't an argument against religion or Christianity, because religion makes people happy. It provides, hope. It provides a sense of belonging. It provides all kinds of things that make people happy. Yet they want to discard religion and replace it with something that doesn't actually contradict it. Very interesting stuff.
Yeah, and Andrew Martin asks a very good question. If science is the art of measurement, right? If science allows you to measure things, right? That's one of the functions of science. So how do you measure the greatest happiness? Wouldn't it be rational for your greatest happiness, and never mind everyone else? There's no moral consequence for doing evil. I mean, there is no evil for that matter. Evil, the concept of evil would be the direct result of having an absolute standard of good, a God to measure against. But if you don't have that, then action is relative. As long as you survive and everyone else dies, that's okay. As long as you survive, do whatever serves your interest. Now, so yeah, this is the ethical maxim: the greatest happiness for the greatest number of people. Marx had this as well. This idea, this utilitarianism, this has led to slaughter worldwide. So it is notable in this connection that Comte was the founder of a religion in which the object of worship was not the deity of the monotheistic faiths, but humanity. This is exactly what the secular humanists believe. This is exactly what Feuerbach taught. This is exactly what Marx taught, Lenin taught. But of course, they weren't real atheists, because today's atheists are sophisticated 21st century atheists. Those other people were not real atheists, right? They were doing atheism wrong. They weren't real Muslims. That's not real Islam, right, Thaddeus?
Well, yeah, those earlier atheists, they had the same problem as the earlier Muslims. They were a little too honest about what they believed in. You got to cloud everything and nice sounding language so no one knows what you're really after. So therefore, the modern atheist, the modern Muslim, they're far superior to their ancestors who were, just basically saying what they actually believed up front.
Yeah. So notice he was the creator of a religion. So let's have a look at his secular humanist religion. Understand, it was secular humanism. Okay? Secular humanism technically was founded in 1928, right? Formally as a religion. But it obviously has its antecedents prior to that. It wasn't always called that. But it was founded formally, right? But this was a secular humanist. Marx was a secular humanist. A lot of people were secular humanists. So let's have a look. Adherents have built chapels of humanity in France and Brazil. Probably some other places here and there, but that's where it's well established. In the US and Europe, his ideas contributed to the emergence of ethical societies, also a religion, by the way, and ethical churches, which led to the development of ethical culture. Ethical culture is a religion, which is a subset of secular humanism. It led to congregational humanist and secular humanist organizations. Churches, okay? Congregations. But it's not a religion. It's atheist. Doesn't believe in God. But it's not atheism because it's not modern atheism. It's embarrassing to atheists, therefore it's not real atheism. Comte developed the religion of humanity. And we will see in the 20th century, the religion of humanity, the common religion of humanity, you'll see this, to fulfill the cohesive function once held by traditional worship. Oh my golly, we still need religion. Can't toss the baby out of the bathwater now, can we? Right? His secular religion was a complete system of belief and ritual. Oh my golly, it wasn't just a lack of belief. With liturgy and sacraments, priesthood and pontiff. Oh my, just like socialism, it still had priests in the form of scientists. It still had doctrine. Thaddeus, you're laughing. Yeah?
Well, you're putting this quite humorously. But since you called on me, I want to point out that he called it ethical churches, implying that traditional churches are not ethical. I.e., it's explicitly anti-Christian. It's explicitly anti the established religion.
Exactly. Andrew Martin says that atheism has nothing to do with any beliefs, and Stalin made himself the literal God on earth. Now, understand, if you've watched some of the previous slides, you'll know that the atheist stated that man is the only God. Because there is no God, man is the supreme being, and therefore man is a God. So atheism has made man a God. And many, many atheists, even today, we've had the guys in the chat, we've had the guys in the comments, claiming, I am a God. Okay? This is the atheist belief. This is the logical outcome of this. If you have no God and you are the supreme being, then you are a God. You are the God. You're the God of your own little world. So, yeah. So anyway, he says it was organized, his religion was organized around the public veneration of humanity. I believe in the French Revolution they did that too. Referred to as the Nouveau Grand Être Supreme, the new supreme great being. The new supreme great being. Oh my golly, so it wasn't just Stalin. It looks like all of these atheists were doing atheism wrong. How come no one can get atheism right? It's like, oh my golly, it's like, how come all these atheists don't just have a lack of belief? They all seem to have, doctrine, religion, beliefs about themselves. Like, and even, you know what's crazy? Every single internet atheist just has a lack of belief. But you know what? Every single university professor that teaches on atheism in the world, every single one, and every single textbook on, and every single dictionary and every single encyclopedia that defines the word atheism is wrong. Did you know that, Thaddeus? Every single academic reference on earth is wrong, and the only people that are right are the atheists in this comment section.
Yeah, amazing stuff. Kind of like when the Muslims come in and they tell us that all of the scholars of Islam have no idea what they're talking about, and we should just believe them because they know Arabic and they're a real Muslim.
Yeah.
Um, I do want to see that textbook though, that is 300 pages or 500 pages. The Encyclopedia of Atheism, let's call it, where you open it, the first page says atheism is a lack of belief, and then the rest of the pages are blank because
Blank.
that's all there is to say about the subject.
Yeah, no, Andrew Martin, Atheism Plus of a decade ago tried to add doctrine. No, they just tried to add additional doctrine or make their own denomination. They were just the, I don't know, the Lamb of God of atheism doctrine. You had the Church of the, Church of the Chickens of atheism, and so there's just different denominations of atheism. Atheism has always been an anti-theology. It's defined, if you go through the academic definitions, they will tell you it is doctrine. It is church doctrine, but anti-church doctrine. It is no different to the Catholic Church, to the Anglican Church, to the Baptist Church. It is doctrine. So anyway, so the public veneration. So worship yourself, worship of yourself, worship of man, worship of yourself, self-interest. This was later supplemented in a positivist trinity. Oh my golly, where did you get that idea? But the grand fetish, the earth, and the grand milieu, cosmic space. I wonder, this is where the eco movement maybe comes from. So yeah, that is, you're laughing again.
Yeah,
um,
well, in this case, it's not actually the way you're phrasing it. It's just the idea itself is so funny. I mean, he's obviously trying to make a trinity because why would he else would he say, okay, the deity, our new deity is humanity, plus the earth, plus space. Yeah, there we go. We got three. We're done.
so this is atheism. This is the history of atheism. Atheism has an incredibly embarrassing, laughably stupid history. These people are rational, reasonable. And you're religious. You are irrational. Dude, you know what? I don't have to believe in Thaddeus, okay? I reasonably, logically, I know Thaddeus. I don't have to believe in him. I'm talking to the guy. That doesn't take any faith, okay? Faith's a whole different setup, right? I'm very good with computers. I'm really good with military-grade surveillance systems. I worked on multi-million-dollar systems. Didn't do that on faith because I'm an irrational idiot. I wasn't paid the kind of money I was paid because I was stupid, right? I was using my logic, my rationality, my engineer's mind, right? Understand? So that was not about faith. Yes, we know, because don't forget, if you're a Christian, the Logos is what you follow. The Logos is the principle of reason, right? Christians are rational. We created the concept of Western rationality. We are the flowering of rationality. Thaddeus, your thoughts before I go on?
Yeah, well, we all know that atheists are just purely rational beings, just following the facts, and we know this because they have defined themselves as such.
Yeah. Now notice he coined the term altruism, which is generosity and selfless dedication to others, right? So this is the one contribution by this guy, Comte. And, Sebaz, how come atheists can't agree on the meaning of atheism? How come they'll reject every single academic source? How come they'll, like Abdul, throw every scientist under the bus when the scientists, these top experts, offer a different view of atheism than they do? And how come they reject every single dictionary and philosophy textbook, every single encyclopedia? Because they actually tell us that atheism is a full, entire doctrine. Okay, now, so he believed that his religion would bring order to society. He felt that religion was needed to bring order to society, Thaddeus. Would you believe it? Man didn't just need a lack of belief, nothing else, full stop. He needed religion to bring order to society, and he thought that after the French Revolution, society needed restoration of order. That atheist revolution apparently didn't bring order. It brought slaughter and genocide, apparently. Oh my golly. That's what Britannica tells us. Okay.
Well,
So, yeah.
it's amazing that a mere lack of belief doesn't bring order to society. I mean, who would have known?
Yeah, who knows, hey? Just strip away this thing that brings order to society and you got disorder in society. I thought atheism was going to bring peace, but it brought the very first atheist. Remember, the French Revolution, France at that time was the very first secular atheist state, and they murdered anyone who wouldn't leave Christianity and join their secular religion, right? Called atheism. These were atheists, right? Yeah. So of course you can. Yes, you do bring peace if you exterminate everyone who disagrees with you, as he never returned as a horse tells us. That is true.
Hey, that sounds just like another religion.
Yeah, I
we
wonder. There's
like to
such
study.
similarity between these two. So, yeah,
All the Muslims will live in peace once they get rid of all of the House of War, i.e., non-Muslims.
yeah. Didn't Tacitus say they they created a wasteland and called it peace? So, yeah. No one ever claimed atheism alone will bring peace. That's why we need philosophy and laws aside. Oh, buddy, so you're telling me that atheism isn't just a lack of belief, it's actually also a bunch of laws and doctrine? So you're saying that every single atheist that has come on my chat and on the comments and on atheists and on the Thaddeus's comments are either misinformed, ignorant, lying? Are you saying there's a are you saying that you're the atheist that knows? Are you the authority in atheism? Because other atheists have been saying exactly that, Seb. Thaddeus, your thoughts?
Yeah, usually when an atheist comes in here, they want to tell us that atheism is just a lack of belief in there, nothing else. What do you mean philosophy? You're going to appeal to philosophy? You're going to appeal to, I don't want to say unprovable, but in the scientific sense, unprovable ideas? You're going to appeal to something outside of science when you're just going with the pure facts? Amazing.
Yeah, I mean, how do you prove laws from science? I mean, good grief. And they said, no, religion causes violence, right? So just strip religion out and you'll have order and peace. You'll have rationality. Because remember, within the atheist doctrine, religion is by default evil, right? Belief is by default irrational. In fact, to be scientific, to be rational, you must be atheistic. This is one of the fundamental axioms of modern atheism. Please understand, modern atheism only dates to about the last 250, 270 years. For convenience, I'll just say 250 years, right? So let's say 1770, let's just say 1770. So atheism, as a modern phenomenon, dates to just prior to the French Revolution. Now, these French Revolution philosophers, as you know, have proven to be banging their cousins, right? Banging their nieces, they banging their brother and sister's kids, right? They are completely immoral. They are irrational, genocidal, right? Suicidal, complete freaks, right? So, but these are atheists. These are completely rational people. Don't question that. So morality that adapts to human happiness to most people should adapt according to what people need. That's interesting. So morality is adaptive. So you mean so in other words, depending on the culture that we're in, society, then of course what we have is adjustable morality. So you're saying that at no time is murder ever completely a sin, or say pedophilia, is that ever wrong? Is there any time where pedophilia is just a-okay because society deems it okay? Now, you know what, Sebaz, I love this.
If it makes, sorry, Lloyd,
Sure.
just to drive home that point, if it makes more people happy that pedophilia is legal than it makes people happy that it's illegal, then that's what you need to do, according to Seb here.
Yeah.
He also just reinforced your point. You've been saying all along that they're borrowed from ancient Greek philosophers who were living in a pagan milieu. And he says the ancient Greek philosophers were atheists.
Now, you know what? We're going to have a talk about this. Seb, you need to come back to a different show because I'm not going to do it today, but I have notes on that already. I've looked into this and you're talking crap, buddy. Because do you know that the term atheism meant something completely different back then? The way that the Greeks defined it is completely different. Maybe you want to look that up. Do some of that rationality nonsense. Be scientific, because you're supposed to be smarter than me because you're rational. So, yeah. Now, so tell me, Seb, so you're saying that morality is relative, right? Now, here's the thing, okay? Society decides. So now society has decided to be Christian, to be religious. You come along and you're saying you don't want to be religious. You want to change society. So you are the one being irrational. You're the one being immoral. Because society has made the decision. Now you are going against the decision of society. So you are the immoral one. That's using your own logic. So will you claim now, will you admit now, will you confess now that you are irrational, that you are immoral, because you are going against society? Just drop it in the chat there. Just drop it in the chat. Thaddeus?
I want to hit home that point. The Salem witch trials, which we're often told is one of the worst events in all of human history, made the vast majority of the population happy. The vast majority of the population was happy that they were,
yes,
rooting out evil witches and getting rid of the causes of all their hardships. So according to Seb, that was what made the maximum number of people happy. So that was good for that society. I
Correct.
just want to make that clear.
Yeah, it needs to be made clear, yeah. So witch burning was making a lot of people very happy. It was a great thing, according to you, because it made people happy. Society decided that. So why are you saying it's bad now? Because it was good then. So if it came back, it'd be good, right? Because society changed their mind. Society decided it. Man, there's a few people that I'd love to go and burn, probably. I don't know. Sometimes I certainly get the feeling, you know. But it's illegal today, so I guess, no. Yeah, what a pity. Those were the good days, You could just burn people if you. Hey, is that police? My neighbor's a witch. Can you guys do something? You'll be over right now with a flamethrower? That's fantastic. Yeah. Look. Yeah, so Seb, understand, society has decided to be religious. So that makes most people happy. I'm not against as long as they don't force people who don't want to believe. Well, atheists have it as part of their doctrine to insist that everyone should be irreligious. So this is unfortunately within your doctrine, and you are the one being immoral because you are going against society. So you are the one that's immoral, right? You are the one that is actually being irrational, going against the what society wants. So he claimed that society would bring that his religion, his atheist secular religion, would bring progress. He said the consequences of industrial and technical breakthroughs for human societies would come from his secular atheist religion. Okay? Now, in Catechism et Posivista, 1851, he defined his Church of Humanities' 7 sacraments. I'm not going to go into the 7 sacraments, I won't even bother, right? But he had 7 sacraments. And the religion of humanity was described by Thomas Huxley as Catholicism minus Christianity. Haven't I been defining all of these atheist movements as exactly that? Catholicism minus God, basically. That's exactly what it was. Right? Yes, he had 7 sacraments, Catholic Biblicists. Just drop some notes about 7 sacraments in there if you would. In addition to a holy trinity of humanity, the earth, and destiny, it had a priesthood. It was even more influential in Victorian England than the theories of Charles Darwin or Karl Marx. Now, Seb, I'm going to shut you up for a minute because you're annoying and useless. Okay? So, atheism is not a neutral situation. It's not a neutral ideology. It is quite explicitly hostile to Christianity. All its philosophers. Modern atheism has a history that can be traced. It has philosophy because it's based on philosophers. And every single one of them is hostile, not neutral. They are actively, positively hostile to and making a religion that is the opposite of Christian doctrine to enforce their own vision on the world, their own utopian vision. Now, it was even more influential in Victorian England than the theories of Charles Darwin or Karl Marx. So understand, these ideas of these atheists, these crazy, bat-poop crazy atheists, have hugely impacted society in ways that we're not aware of historically. Now, he wanted a secular Roman Catholic Church for a better future. Right. Actually, you know what? The reason to answer that's a really good question. Sebaz, you said we should make laws that make the most number of people happy. So what if the law that makes the most number of people happy is to force everyone to believe the same thing? Yeah, well, I mean, let's make everybody, I don't know, Baptist. Let's go there. Why not? It's going to make a lot of people happy. And then Seb, I mean, you don't want to be immoral, do you? By going against society. It's going to make people happy, so just shut up and go along with it. Now notice, Britannica says...
Or to make this...
Sorry?
Or to make this real with actual numbers, in Islamic majority nations, they do surveys from time to time finding out what people believe. Quite often, like 85% of the population is in favor of the death penalty for anyone who leaves Islam. So according to you, that is perfectly ethical because 85% of the population is made happy by that law. 15% of it disagree with it. The 15% are obviously the smaller number, so therefore the law is good.
Yeah, the law is good because exactly so. I mean, hey, it made certain national communists in Germany very, very happy to kill a lot of people. Made them happy, so I guess it was just fine, right? Right? That's what we're left with. Understand? The whole atheist philosophy, the whole atheist enterprise is anti-Christian and completely just psychobabble. It's just garbage babble. Right, moving on. So his style was heavy, labored, and monotonous. And Positivism claims that theology and metaphysics are outdated, imperfect modes of knowledge. That positive knowledge is based on natural phenomena and their properties and relations as verified by empirical sciences. That's the relations. That's his maths and logic now. Suddenly it's like, oh well, yeah, we're just using that as verification. And Comte used the notion of a hypothetical framework for social organization that would imitate the hierarchy and discipline found in the Roman Catholic Church. So he's using religion, not abolishing it, using it, just replacing God with man. He believed in historical progress. So did a guy called Marx, called historical materialism. From St. Simon, he saw the need for a basic and unifying social science that would explain existing social organizations and guide social planning for a better future, that he called sociology. The science to create the utopia was called sociology. And sadly, you will notice that it's the sociological departments in universities that are the bedrock of woke culture today. These are the proselytizers of woke culture. It's these human scientists, these human sciences, these humanistic departments that are the bedrock of woke culture. Yeah. And he had the 3 stages: intellectual development that moved historically from theology, gods and spirits, to metaphysics, to positivism, distinguished by an awareness of the limitations of human knowledge relative to man's nature as a species and his varying social and historical situations. It's all relativist. In other words, it can change at a moment's notice. And absolute explanations must be abandoned for the more sensible discovery of laws based on the observable relations between phenomena. It's 5th century paganism, just in nice words, Thaddeus. It's all moral relativism.
As our friend popped in, agreed. He hadn't realized that you'd already said that, but he pops in and says, atheism goes back to the ancient Greek philosophers. And we agree. What you believe is the same thing the ancient Greek philosophers believed, although they probably didn't really believe atheism as you think of it. It's a very old idea. It's a very old pagan idea, just like you and I, we agree on that 100%.
Yeah, it is pagan philosophy.
I do think it's very interesting how, all of these early socialists, all of these early secular humanists, all these early atheists, they all wanted to replace religion with a different thing that had basically the same organization, just different doctrine. Yet the two have nothing to do with each other. Atheism has nothing to do with religion. It's a completely different thing. You can't even talk about atheism because it's just
doesn't
like
exist.
Being hungry.
Atheism doesn't exist.
Well, being an atheist is just like being hungry or not being hungry, I suppose, if you prefer that. I'm hungry right now. Lloyd is not hungry right now. I'm a theist. Lloyd's an atheist. It's basically the same thing, right? It's just a state of your mind, just a state of being. It changes from time to time. There's nothing to talk about.
Yeah, I don't actually believe anything. I just have a psychological state of belief. Okay, so theism is just a psychological state of belief. I don't actually have any beliefs, but I have a state of belief. I have a state of belief in a God. Whereas I have that space, that empty space, is filled, whereas an atheist just has it empty. That's all. We don't have any actual beliefs. It's just just whether the vacuum is filled or not. So
exactly, the chemicals in his brain are telling him that there is no God. The chemicals in my brain are telling me there is a God, but that's all. We just have different chemicals.
Yeah. It's obviously it's clearly incoherent babble. It's incoherence. So Auguste Comte, to finish off with this guy, so he was a somber, according to Britannica. I didn't make this up. So the scholars that wrote this article says he was an ungrateful, self-centered, and egocentric personality. Wonderful guy, lovely guy. I mean, don't forget, his friend and mentor tried to blow his brains out and shot out his eye. So he compensated for this by his zeal for the welfare of humanity. Oh my God, think of the children. Think of the children. And his intellectual determination and his strenuous application to his life's work for the welfare of humanity. And he devoted himself to the promotion and systemization of his ideas and their application in the cause of the improvement of society. Oh, wonderful guy. So what a saint.
We could say the same thing about any of the communist leaders. Stalin, he was very self-centered. He was very egotistical. All he ever did is think about himself. But he had a great zeal for making Soviet Russia be equal for everyone. He really was just looking after the people. When he exterminated millions of people, that was just to improve the lives of everyone else. He's such a great guy.
Yep. So understand, this is what they say. So yeah, we need to just. So anyway, so ethical culture. Let's have a look at. Let's spend a few minutes. So shall we go to the half-hour mark? That is that okay? Or
Yep.
so the audience can let me know if. So guys, hopefully you're learning something. Oh, by the way, if I may take this moment to interrupt. As you know, I think you guys realize I spend a huge amount of time developing this material. It takes a lot of time. And many people have said I should go on to Patreon, which I don't really want to do, but a couple of things. First of all, my very first video with Al-Fadi is up on his channel, finally. I recorded these videos probably in February or something, I don't know, February or March. I recorded these videos. Now in November, they finally appear on the channel. I'd given up on this. I thought the guy had forgotten me. So yeah, so this is Sharia law, sacred or secret, Lloyd de Jongh, Sharia, the true Muslim Talmud, or the Muslim Talmud, episode 1. It's had a really good viewing rate so far, almost 6K views in just one day, 24 hours. And I don't know, millions of comments, 545, and yeah. And then also, so yeah, so I've recorded 14 episodes with him, and he's asked me to do more in December. And oddly enough, surprisingly enough, he's asked me if I'd be willing to do a live stream with him and Dr. J. Smith, which I've agreed to. So that's the last thing I expected, but okay, fine and well. So that should happen in December, so 7th, 8th, 9th. Of course, it doesn't mean that it'll be broadcast on the 7th, 8th, and 9th of December. It could be broadcast in, I don't know, April of 2024, right? So don't hold your breath. And then finally, I happen to have put up a site on this website called Coffee. Right, so this is a website called Coffee, and yeah, it's coffee.com, co-fi.com, and my name, Lloyd de Jongh. That's the link here. And yeah, if you guys would like to support me, I do want to do much more of this kind of work, and I will show you, for instance, on this basis here, if we have a look here. At the moment, I'm busy with, this is a bunch of different slides sets that I'm working on, okay? Some of these you've seen, but there's actually more in the background as well. But I'm working on a whole bunch of this material as well on different topics. As I said, I do want to work on U.S. civics because the story that we've been told historically on the Founding Fathers is completely false. We need to dive into that. So if you guys would like to support me for as little as $2 a month on this website, that'd be great. And you can also join on YouTube. I need to obviously just dive into that. But thank you for those who have. I do appreciate the support. I was able to buy a fantastic new camera because my last camera was 12 years old. So a couple of months ago, I bought a new camera and new microphone. So thank you, everyone, for that. Okay, back to... So, ethical culture, 1876. And here we go, this guy. So, yes, and Andrew, you were right. I mean, definitely, the whole idea of the philosophy is based on the idea of the Vitruvian man. Man is the measure of all things. Okay? This is the idea here. Man is the measure of all things. Now, this, of course, is also the hippie logo, which is also very similar. Now, the question has been asked, what is the difference between humanism and ethical culture? It is obvious here that ethical culture is a means to an end in humanism and might be considered a department of humanism. So that teaches us something about this religion called ethical culture. All right? So, Felix Adler, this guy, a former member of the Free Religious Association, obviously nothing to do with religion, don't believe your lying eyes, conceived of ethical culture as a new religion, but he doesn't mean it in the way that religion is meant. Okay, it's religion in a way that's not embarrassing to atheists. It's not don't believe your mind, right? That would strip away the unscientific dogmas of traditional religion, while retaining and elevating the ethical message at the heart of all religions. Thaddeus, does this sound like it's the same story over and over and over?
Yeah. We've moved on to a new figure here, but if you didn't tell us that, we would have thought we were still talking about the same guy because they're all saying the same thing. They all have a different name for it, right? Here we have religious association, ethical culture. We had religious socialism. We had
Positivism.
positivism. We have all kinds of different
They're all
terms, but they all are
atheistic.
basically saying the same thing. They're all atheistic, yes, but they're all attempting to replace Christianity specifically.
Yeah.
Not get rid of Christianity, replace Christianity with something different.
Yeah, and he believed that traditional religions would ultimately prove to be incompatible with a scientific worldview. Please understand, at some point I'm going to be diving into the scientific revolution, and it is specifically a Christian revolution, right? A Christian revolution, and this is something that they also want to change. They want to strip you of your birthright. They want to strip you of your legacy, the heritage you come from, which is scientific and rational. So yeah, and so he felt, Thaddeus, there was a message from Highness. Yeah, so that was, hold on, let me get that. Thank you very much. I do appreciate it. Let me get that link, and I will post it. But thank you very much. I really appreciate it. Let me just go find the chat, and I'll drop it in there. Oh, you're not a mod. Hold on. Sorry about that. Sorry about that.
I didn't need to be a mod.
Gee whiz, no, I didn't realize. I hadn't thought about it. But then again, you haven't really been streaming on my channel, have you? Until recently, so we started doing this. Sorry about that. I just did. Thank you, Andrew.
I didn't care. It's just he asked me to post the link, and I'm like, I can't.
Okay, so here we go. So he felt that vital aspects of religion should not be allowed to fall by the wayside. Now, there's actually a book written by an atheist that says, hold on, wait. Religion is useful. It has uses. We can't get rid of all of it. We need to use it because it's been stable for a long time. We need to use it because it's got a great way of ordering society, organizing society. Right, and religions provided vital functions in encouraging good works. Oh my golly. And religions taught important truths about the world, albeit these truths were expressed through metaphors that were not always suited to modern understandings. Richard Dawkins needs to talk to this guy because religion is evil, according to Dawkins. It's evil unbound, it's evil unchained, it's straight out of hell. And he doesn't believe in hell though, so he probably means that metaphorically. And monotheistic religions were based on a metaphor of an authoritarian monarchy, according to him. Whereas democratic relationships, oh, that word democratic again, is very leftist, were now understood to be the ideal. Ethical culture was religious, he said. It was religious. Trust me, it was religious. We're going to dive in another presentation. We're going to dive into that. It was 100% religious. Ethical culture was religious in the sense of playing a defining role in people's lives and addressing issues of ultimate concern. Well, that is.
Yeah, isn't that kind of... He says in the sentence of playing a defining role in people's lives and addressing issues of ultimate concern, but isn't that exactly what religion is? I mean, that it's making claims about the unseen metaphysical state and people's ultimate reality. Certain religions don't necessarily believe in a theistic God. Religion and theism aren't one and the same, but this definition of ethical culture absolutely sounds 100% like a religion, a non-theistic religion, but a religion nonetheless.
Yeah, and of course we should note that Albert Camus was another idiot, but whatever, he was a philosopher, and he states, the welfare of the people in particular has always been the alibi of tyrants. So someone think of the children. Yeah. So, that's Albert Camus. So, by the way, just a slight diversion. This is an interesting book. I don't believe in atheists. The dangerous rise of the secular fundamentalist. Okay, it's actually published now under a different title. It's by Chris Hedges. It's actually got a different title now, but this is an article on this about this book. But it speaks of atheists have no room to gloat. Pol Pot, Joseph Stalin, and Mao Zedong tallied tens of millions of kills between them in the 20th century. The absence of a religion is no more protection against fanatical rampages than blind faith. Right? So, yeah, this is an interesting. So even the discussion around this book is very interesting. But he speaks of the rise of the secular fundamentalist, like Dawkins or Sham Harris. The New York Times bestselling author speaks out against those who attack religion to advance their own religious agenda. He accuses the new atheists led by Sham Harris, Richard Dawkins, and Christopher Hitchens of promoting a belief system that is not, as they claim, based on reason and science, but on a simplified worldview of us versus them, on intolerance, and the false myths of human progress and moral superiority. Yeah, your thoughts, Dennis? You've got that smile again.
Yeah, well, I was smiling a little bit about Sham Harris, but it's absolutely correct that these. Now, to be clear, there are people who are functionally atheists who never really care about religion, never think about it. And that's not who we're talking about. We're talking about leaders here. We're talking about people who are advocating for atheism. And they absolutely are trying to advance their own agenda. They absolutely are not just standing by with no positive position that they have to defend like they want to claim, but they're absolutely making claims of moral superiority.
And they do. Hold on, so I need to find... There's something I need to find... hold on. Oops. Let me just get something, because there's a slide I want to share with you guys. Okay, so I want you to have a look at this. Now, this is probably... Okay, so this reference here that I'm showing you is considered the world's most... Many academics consider it the world's most complete, most authoritative philosophical resource, academic philosophical resource. It's the Stanford Encyclopedia of Philosophy. It is highly, highly respected, which means that, as you know, the Abdul atheists are going to tell us it's wrong, okay? Because it's not their dictionary. It's not my encyclopedia. It's not my scholar. But I want you to listen now. Here's a question. So wait, this is slide number 15. So here's a question I want to ask. If atheism is merely a lack of belief, then what is the opposite of theism? So, Thaddeus, what is logically speaking the opposite of theism? Wouldn't that be atheism? If theism is that God exists, then what is the opposite? What is God does not exist? What is that word? Goonie Goo
God exists.
Carrot? Hilltop? Faucet? Ice cube? I mean, what is the opposite of theism?
Ice cube, that's it. Yeah.
Ice cube, yeah. So, thank you. Someone please give Thaddeus a prize there, because the opposite of atheism is ice cube. It's not atheism. Don't be a bigot.
Well, actually, Lloyd, strictly speaking, if atheism is just the lack of belief, it isn't a positive belief at all, then I guess any positive belief is the opposite. So, like, I believe that the president of the United States is Joe Biden. The opposite of that is atheism.
And atheism doesn't exist. How can a lack of something, how can nothing be something, right? Let's be scientific, people. So here's the thing. So what is the contradictory of atheism? So Andrew says, this is considered gospel, right, for a lot of atheists. So the Stanford Encyclopedia of Philosophy, so they tell us here, and they're obviously wrong, because it just shows academics have no idea. We need to listen to the people in the comments who are completely anonymous and have no names, right? Atheism is a direct answer to one of the most important metaphysical questions in philosophy of religion, namely, does God exist? So atheism is an answer. An answer is based on premises. It's a conclusion based on argument. There are only two direct answers to this question. Yes, which is theism, and no, which is atheism. So atheism is a conclusion to a question. It's an answer based on various premises, based on argument, based on whatever deductive process that they've used. Since it is also natural to define atheism in terms of theism, it follows that it is best for philosophers to understand the in atheism as a negation instead of absence. It is not a lack of belief, it is not instead of without. In other words, to take atheism to be the contradictory of theism. It is the contradictory position. It is the negative position. Your thoughts on that, Thaddeus?
Yeah, and when defined this way, I have no problem with someone saying that they're an atheist. Well, I mean, I think they're wrong, to be clear, but I don't have a problem with someone who is willing to adhere to that definition, that they are taking a positive position that there is no God. What I have a problem with is when someone says, I don't have a position, therefore I'm an atheist.
No, that's sophistry. That's just lying. That is flat out word games. That is just sophistry, which is just dishonesty. So, atheism. Look, Andrew Martin. When you read through, in this presentation that I've done a preview of on my channel recently. I've done a preview. So I've got about 30 different definitions from all of the very top atheist philosophers in the world, as well as the top dictionaries, as well as like Oxford, Cambridge, and so on, as well as the top academic encyclopedias that all define atheism. All of them state it's a doctrine. It's not a lack of belief. Nowhere do they talk about lack of belief as a serious topic. It's mentioned maybe like 2 or 3 times in various of them in passing, but it is considered doctrine. Like the Catholic Church has doctrine, they discuss atheism as a doctrine. It is an atheology. And in fact, they speak of, there's Rutledge speaks of it, sorry. Hold on. Let me go find, oh, bugger. Okay, let me bring this up. I need to find the Rutledge reference. Okay. So, hold on. Okay, so also the word non-theist. Now, this is not really this presentation, but the term non-theist exists and it's used liberally. I mean, it is used extensively within the academic literature to describe someone who lacks belief, who's just not religious. So, an atheist is the opposite of theist. It's the contradictory position. It is the opposite position. In other words, it's their position, right? You already have the word non-theist. And non-theists, the moment they have an argument, well, they're not just lacking belief. Now they have an active position. But I need to go find the other Rutledge thing. So can you just read that for me, Thaddeus, please? This has just come up. It'll be in 2 or 3 seconds in front of you.
Yes. This definition is also found in multiple encyclopedias and dictionaries of philosophies. In the concise Rutledge Encyclopedia of Philosophy, William L. Rowe, also an atheist, writes, Atheism is the position that affirms the non-existence of God. It proposes positive disbelief rather than mere suspension of belief.
Right.
And I agree. I think that is a correct definition of atheism.
Okay. Now, I've just brought up another one. If you can just take a moment to read this, please. This is very important. Oh, wow. Thank you, Your Highness. Thank you. Thank you very, very much. I'm so grateful. Thank you. Thaddeus, if you can just...
yeah, so which one? What do you want me to read?
Yeah, just this page.
Or?
Yeah, this Rutledge page. It should be... Hold on, let me just load it fully. Okay, there you go. Yeah. Yeah, just check the whole slide. Tell me what you think of that.
Yeah, okay. Yes. Certain deconstructive strategies which seek to undermine any notion of a secure foundation, whether in Christ or in culture, while rejecting theism. These forms of deconstruction are not simply atheistic. Rather, they provide an atheology of culture, both avoiding and approaching theology, specifically negative theology. Deconstructive atheologies of cultural disseminate radical, yet almost jubilant skepticism regarding the capacity of any cultural sign, religious or secular, to produce a stable meaning and so to convey the presence of whatever is taken to signify. For Rory, the self has to be de-divinized.
So tell me what you think of this and I'll get to you. So basically they believe that so atheism, according to the Rutledge Companion Encyclopedia of Theology, atheism is an atheology. It is an anti-Christian theology. Specifically an anti. We know what the opposer is within Christian doctrine. Someone who opposes and is the opposite of Christianity that's the satanic. Now, atheism rejects theism, but also these forms of deconstruction, and we know that this is cultural Marxism, right? This deconstructionist behavior is all cultural Marxist. This criticism, remember, this comes from Marx's idea of criticism. Prior to that, Marx got it from Feuerbach, right? This deconstruction, this criticism of things you don't like. And he says they're not simply atheistic. Yes, they are atheistic, but they are antagonistic to Western culture. They're antagonistic to religion. They provide an atheology of culture, both avoiding and approaching theology. In other words, specifically, they are a negative theology. And they disseminate radical yet jubilant skepticism regarding every symbol that the West holds dear. So they want to undermine Jesus. They want to undermine the family. They want to undermine the church. They want to undermine the founding fathers, the Christian founding of America. They want to undermine any symbol that has any positive religious meaning. And thus, they want to strip it of whatever stable, meaningful meaning that it had for people. So atheism is an attack on Western culture, according to this definition. Would I have that correct, Thaddeus? Thank you very, very much, guys. I'm so grateful.
Yeah,
Thank you to Green
I think so. Sorry. Yeah, I think so. That it's defining as not only an attack on, Christian religion, but also the prevailing culture. That it's an attack on, attempt to replace the current culture with something different.
Yes, with something inverted. It's an inversion. So this is atheism as doctrine. Okay, this is coming from an encyclopedia of theology. It's scientific, so don't blame me. It's not a conspiracy theory. So so let me get back to, so any final words on this, Thaddeus, before we wrap up on the other slides?
No, I think that we've covered it. That the atheist that comes into the comments, like the guy last time, I think his name was like Black Diamond or something like that.
Yeah.
He says, we have no clue what we're talking about because we don't even know what the definition of atheism is. Stand in opposition to literally every academic source and dictionary, for that matter, that defines atheism as a position that there is no God.
Yeah. We don't know. So because of that statement, as I said, I already had a list of about 24 definitions of the word atheism from multiple sources. I read about 20 of them online. I decided to go find a bunch more. And I will be delving into the definition of atheism from academia. And let's just say that none of the atheists I've ever seen get it right. But of course, wow, thank you very much, Rico Danis. Thank you, guys. I'm so grateful. I really appreciate it. I'm really grateful because I do put a lot of time and research into this. It takes hours and hours, and I'm really grateful. Thank you very much. Okay, let's finish up for the next few minutes, guys. I'm going to wrap up on this. A last word about St. Simon. So, St. Simon posited a three-stage process: religious, metaphysical, and finally, scientific. Now, of course, secular humanists, atheists, love to talk about science. We're scientific, okay? Now, so, through which society passed as knowledge became more assured. Ultimately, ethics itself would become a science to be calculated and defined with precision and certainty. Do you have a calculator? Well, just pull out your ethics calculator. Just pull out your little calculator for morals. We've got it right here. Here's a times table. In the process, they would... Hold on, hang on. Oh, sorry, this is profound. In time, atheism would banish conflict to the history books. Marx, Lenin, Mao, Stalin, Pol Pot. The French Revolution would banish conflict to the history books because they would use reason, Thaddeus. And we're not giving atheism a chance. Would you believe it? For all his uncritical worship of science, however, St. Simon recognized that dry rationality alone would not suffice. People needed emotions and feelings in their life. Thus, rather than crush Christianity, he sought to replace it within a different system. Does that sound familiar? That is, I'll let you give you a word.
Man, Lloyd, why did you just make the same slide over and over again?
I'm so sorry. I'm a stuck record. So, even to the extent of writing a book entitled Nouveau Christianisme in 1825, my French probably sucks, he replaced deity with humanity, clergy with scientists, and faith with scientific knowledge. Now, hey, come on, you know this and I know this. I've heard atheists constantly going, I believe in science, we're scientific, I believe in science. Well, faith with scientific knowledge, and proposed a social reorganization centered on a cult of Newton. That's perfectly reasonable. Newton's a fine man. I guess. I mean, who do you? That is. Sorry.
Caught in Newton, huh? I'm pretty sure that Newton was quite a devout Christian, by the way.
Now the cult of Darwin. Green Eagle is right. Cult of Darwin now. Oh, don't worry. We're going to be talking about Darwin. Darwin's coming up. He's on my radar. In fact, he's in my sniper scope. Oh, that's going to be fun too, man. That's going to be so much fun. Good grief. That's going to be a riot. So, St. Simon could verge on the mad. I'm sure he was perfectly stable. Please don't be prejudiced against this crazy man. But he was also genuinely original. His religion of scientific atheism. Now, Marx used the term scientific atheism, so did Lenin, so did Stalin. Right? In fact, all the communist regimes are scientifically atheist, right? Forming the mold from which many others would take their shape. He was taken seriously by some of the 19th century's finest minds, including John Stuart Mill, Thomas Carlyle, the historian, Karl Marx, and Friedrich Engels. In France, a number of disciples such as Prosper and Fantine and Saint-Amand Bezard took on his ideas and formed a Saint-Simonian sect. Nothing religious about that, which managed to remain together for 2 whole years and became a favorite weekend outing for curious Parisians. Yeah, that is.
I think that was not meant to be ironic. I think they actually were saying that it did great as society out together for 2 years, but he's founding a new religion. He's the new Christianity. He says so himself, and it held up for 2 years, 2 whole years. What a hero!
Yeah. Good stuff. Yeah, the man changed the world for the better. So this crazy dude that shot his eye out. So guys, yeah, I think I'll wrap up here. I went a bit longer than anticipated. But Thaddeus, what did you learn today, and what do you think we've taught the audience today? And guys, what have you learned today? Sorry.
Oh, all jokes aside about you repeating the same information, I think that we've learned that all of these figures, all of these leaders in proto-socialism, if you will, all these leaders in what would eventually become the socialist movement, which would eventually become the scientific atheism movement of the 20th century, they all thought the same thing. They all thought that they were creating a new religion that would replace Christianity. Yeah. That it would have the same structure, there'd be what you could call priests. It would have the same moral values. It would have the same institutions, the same buildings, everything, except for one small, tiny little difference. Just remove God from the equation.
Yeah, exactly. He never returned his horses alone to think of the children. Sorry. Yeah. So, with one tiny difference. It's Christianity with anything divine removed from it, stripped out. It's repackaged religion. They were making an atheistic religion. Atheism was created as a religion. Okay? Greek atheism from 2,500 years ago is a very different prospect than atheism today. They're different things. I have already covered that. I knew that was going to come up. Some fool was going to say that. I have the notes on that. We'll be talking about that in the future. But yeah, so trust me, I know I say a lot of fun things, very blunt things, but yeah, I've got the homework done. Christianity without Christ. Yes, Corin Weiss, that is correct. Christianity without Christ. That's exactly what they want. They are jealous of Christianity and they want to replace it with their own crazy ideas. Scientific Christianity. Socialism is a religion. Secular humanism, what they're pushing in the schools, is religion. The whole government system is a religion that they're pushing. And we need to know about it so that we can humiliate these people in public, show them the truth of the atheist doctrine, their beliefs. At some point, they need to be open and honest about their history and their prophets. These are the prophets of atheism. Would you agree, Thaddeus? These are the prophets of atheism.
Yeah, the founding prophets of atheism. Absolutely.
Guys, so these prophets, all of them are crazy people. They're pedophiles. They're incestuous. They're genocidal maniacs, egomaniacs. I mean, seriously, none of them are good people. And yes, then they do abhor Jesus Christ. Yes, but they're jealous of him. They want to use him, right? So they want to demote him like Islam does. It's all over the place. But when you look into the history of atheism, it is nothing but sheer embarrassment. Atheism is as dirty as Islam. It's very, very similar. So guys, I need to call it an end. Thank you very much for your time. I'm glad so many of you have come in tonight. Let me check how many are watching. So, good grief, YouTube has changed its algorithm and it doesn't show these numbers. 64, wow, thank you. So guys, thank you. I do appreciate all your time, Thaddeus. Thank you for joining me again today.
Absolutely.
It was very fun, educational, and we'll continue again next week or during the week if Thaddeus has time. And yeah, let me see how many slides I have left on this particular presentation. Like another 20. Okay, so guys, thank you very much. We shall see you guys soon, and thank you again for the contributions, the donations. I'm so grateful. Have a good night. Minor attracted person. That's minor attracted pedophile. Okay, thank you guys. Take care and good night. And share the word. Use this on atheists, please. They need to know the truth of their religion. Thank you very much. Good night and goodbye. God bless.